Hello everybody and welcome to today's video of Fantasy Clash, where we'll be looking at a full game in action where I take my Human Alliance up against Kirby 3000's Orc faction. So we join the action when we've just completed our setup. We roll off to see who'll go first. I roll a 3, Kirby rolls a 6, so the Orcs will be going first. It's the movement phase first. There's not much to be doing in turn 1 though for movement because there's no space or anything to move into. But he does have one trick up his sleeve. He reveals the Zeppelins. If we look at the Zeppelins, you'll see they have Scout, which has a range of 3, which means he can use that Scout ability to make me reveal one of my cards within range. There's only 2 steps between my front row, which he decides to use, so I'm forced to reveal my Knights. With that, Kirby moves on to his combat phase and decides at this stage to reveal the Boar Riders. Boar Riders have an attack 14, defense 11 against my Knights. If you look at the size is 8 against the Knight size of 10, so it's not more than double. So it's basically attack 14 versus defense 14, but because of charge, you get an extra 1d6 in attack. So Kirby will be rolling 3 dice to my 2. So I rolled a 7, which gives me a defense of 21. But the Boar Riders beat that with attack 14, with a roll of 11 gives them 25. So my Knights are defeated. However, I have a trick up my sleeve as well. I decide at this stage to reveal my Field Surgeon. The Field Surgeon has the heal ability, so any card that would be removed within range, which is a range of 3, which the Knights are within, you get, it's almost like a saving throw. So if I can roll a 6, the Knights are not removed from play. But at this point 4 means that the Knights have been killed by the Boar Riders, so Kirby takes that into his Conquer pile, and he must follow up because he's used Charge with the Boar Riders. It now moves on to his Magic phase. And it's here that he decides to reveal his champion card that he's taken, which is Darkstaff, the Shaman, who is magic and a magic score of 14 there, or 13, sorry. But as it says magic phase, not only has he got the option to cast magic spells, this is also the phase where you play magic items. Each person can have one magic item at a time on the field of battle, and it's here that Kirby decides to give Darkstaff the Shaman Staff, which gives him +1 in all magic rolls, effectively giving him an increased magic score from 13 to 14. So here he decides to try and cast one of the most powerful spells in the Orc deck, the most powerful spell in the Orc deck, Unite the Tribes. 24 is the casting cost, we saw there in the corner. He rolls 10 with Darkstaff's magic score of 13 plus the Shaman Staff 14 plus 10, 24. He successfully cast Unite the Tribes, which gives him 5d6, which he can reroll at any time. So we generate the reroll dice, just make them green, make it easier to follow which ones are rerolls, because once he's used them, they're gone, and he can use that at any time for any roll that he wants. With that, he's got no space for reinforcements or enough cards to play reinforcements, so it moves across to my first turn. So I'm not entirely sure what I want to do, so I'm just checking my front row. I've got 2 sets of pikemen, more to clog up lanes because they're more a defensive unit. I really want to attack my knights, but I don't know what that card is in front of them, so I don't want to take the risk. So instead I reveal my crossbows with a range of 3 and decide to shoot that card in front of the knights instead, revealing it. So it's revealed to be gremlins, so I've made the right choice there because their trapper ability would have killed the knights outright as well as them, but that would not have been a good trade-off, an elite card for a regular card. So instead the crossbows do their attack. So crossbows have an attack of 6 plus my 5 rolled there is a total of 11, and the gremlins don't have a great defensive score, and Kirby's roll of 4 there only gives him a total of 6, so the gremlins are removed from play. Because it was a ranged attack, there's no follow-up, so the crossbows stay where they are. So I move on to my magic phase, and it's here I decide that I'm going to reveal my priest. The priest on the Alliance army have access to blessings from the gods, so that's what the tokens over there on the right hand side are for. But I decide to reveal both my priests, so I get 2 chances to cast the blessings, or cast multiple blessings on one turn. I decide I'm going to try and cast the Blessing of Death, invoke the Death God against those Boar Riders, get them out of the way. It will give them 1d6 less in attack if I'm successful. Now the Blessing of Death costs 17 plus to cast. Looking at the Priest's magic score of 8, both of them have magic of 8, it means that I need to roll 9 plus, but because I've got 2 priests I get 2 shots at it. First priest has a go, rolls a disappointing 3. Second priest also has a go, and also a disappointing 3. The gods are not interested at all just now, so there's a failure there. So now I know I've got a wizard right in front of the Boar Riders, and I feel that they're going to charge and take them out next turn, so instead I decide to reveal them and try and cast one of my spells. I decide I'm going to go for Fireball. It's got a casting cost of 18. The wizard has a magic score of 12, so I just need a 6 plus on 2d6 to cast it. And a 4, which means I don't cast the fireball, so it remains in my hand. It's still available to cast at another turn, but that brings my turn to a very disappointing end. It's worth noting the reason I've got the priest so far back is there's no limit to Blessing's range, but the wizard is that far forward because he is limited by range for his spells. So I've put the priest a bit more defensively at the back so they can do their blessings, hopefully without being attacked. So Kirby started his movement phase here. He's moving them all up to create some space at the back for some potential reinforcements and to keep the pressure up on that flank. Plus it also brings the Zeppelin into range for another card, which he decides to use the scout ability and reveals my swordsman. That completes his movement this turn. So he's just working out what he wants to do from an attack perspective. And he decides that the Boar Riders are indeed going to charge the wizard. So the Boar Riders have size 8 compared to the size of the wizard, which is 1. So that means they get an extra d6 in attack, plus they're charging, which is another extra d6. So they're going to roll 4d6 to my wizard's 2. So I roll far too hard and get excited and lose 1 dice off the table. But then I roll 9 altogether, which is a pretty good score, but the wizard's defense is only 5, so I've got 14. Boar Riders have attack of 14 plus a mammoth roll there with all their dice, which means there's no way the wizard's surviving that unless the field surgeon right next to him can keep him alive. He's in range of the heal. Again, I would need to roll 6. If it's successful, the wizard would stay on, but it's a very disappointing 2, which means the wizard is moved into the conquered pile. And the Boar Riders follow up. Kirby's having a look to see if he wants to do any spells in his magic phase. He doesn't have enough for reinforcements yet. I'm starting to get worried already early in this game because that's a big chunk down my right hand flank gone, and the swordsman and the priest are not in any position to probably stop those Boar Riders, so I have to think of something. So Kirby decides that he doesn't want to do anything in his magic phase, so it moves on to me. So I definitely need to do something about these Boar Riders. So I'm just having a look around to see what I've got in the area that can do something about it. And I decide our best chance is my Hellmouth, which is a big war machine, flaming cannon type thing. So it's got an attack of 14, range of 3. The Boar Rider's now within range of 3, 2 across, 1 up, makes 3. And their defense is 11 against my attack of 14. So I've got a 3 advantage already, and it's a straight 2d6 versus 2d6 this time. I roll a very impressive 10, which gives my total of 24 in attack compared to the Boar Rider's defense of 11, and that roll of 6 gives 17. So I would take the Boar Riders into my conquer pile. It's Kirby is now debating whether he wants to use any of his green reroll dice to try and save the Boar Riders. Doing a bit of maths, working out what he would need against my roll 24. Even if he did roll 12, though, the maximum he can get is 23, so he decides against using any rerolls, and I take them into my conquer pile. So good to get rid of the board riders there. They were causing havoc down that side, but I have revealed my war machine pretty early, but he's safely in the middle, quite far back. Range of 4 actually, sorry, for the Hellmouth, so it can stay quite far back. Because it's a war machine though, it can no longer move. It's now in that slot further out of the battle. So going on to my magic phase, I decide I'm going to try and cast the Blessing of War, which will give me an extra d6 in attack, which needs a casting cost of 14. Rolled 8, so that's fine. So the Hellmouth, next time it rolls an attack, will roll an extra d6 in attack. With that though, I can't really do anything much more. Don't have any more wizards, so I can't cast any spells. Don't want to play a magic item yet, so no room for reinforcement, so I decide that's my turn. So we're back onto Kirby's movement phase. What he decides to do is move his Zeppelin. Now the Zeppelin has the fly ability, which means it can actually move 2 spaces, so he flies it forward into that gap there, which I must admit I wasn't expecting to have a Zeppelin this far into my territory, because it's not much of a combat unit, but he uses it to scout my card, which turns out to be my pit fighters. However, the real reason he's flown it in there is because he's going to use the Zeppelin to try and take out the field surgeon and stop me doing any saving throws. So it's size of 8 against size of 1, so he's got an extra d6. He uses an attack of 5, I have a defense of 5, so in the epic battle of Balloon versus Doctor, I roll 8, and he's only rolled 3, 4, 5, 6. So the field surgeon has 1, but there's no way Kirby's having that, so he re-rolls one of the dice, the 1, and replaces it with a 4 from his re-roll, which gives him enough to defeat my field surgeon. So as that was a magic dice, we'll delete that off the table. It's been used. However, all is not lost for my field surgeon yet, as I've got another one on the field. So I reveal that, and he is within the heal range of 3. And I managed to lose a dice off the table, which isn't a good sign. And then roll a 4. So unfortunately, the field surgeon has been unable to help his brethren, and he is removed as well. And Kirby decides to follow up the Zeppelin deep into my territory. At this point, Kirby decides he's not going to do anything in the magic phase, so moves to the reinforcement phase. He has 3 in his conquered pile, so he cashes them in. Those cards are now discarded from the game. He shuffles his reinforcement deck, draws a card, and plays it in the back row as a reinforcement. Reinforcements must come in from the back row, so you need to have a space on the back before you can play a reinforcement, even if you have enough in your conquered pile. And with that, that's an end to his turn. So I decide to move some of my cards up just to create room for reinforcements. I don't think the Zeppelin's too much of a threat just now, but I do need to do something about it. I've got the pit fighters right there, got the swordsman right there. I could also shoot at it with a Hellmouth, but I don't want to waste its blessing for its next attack, so I decide to use my pit fighters. They've got killing blow, which means if I roll a natural 6, I automatically win the combat. But this time I just roll a 4. But it's still enough. If I look at the pit fighter's attack of 12, that's attack of 16 scored, and Zeppelin's only got a defense of 5 with their 6 scored. That's only 9. So I take the Zeppelin into my conquer pile. So I don't really have anything to do in my magic phase at the moment for magic spells, magic items, but I decide to use my priests to do the Blessing of the Harvest. It's a 16 plus, which is an 8 plus required. I've got 2 priests on the table, so I can roll twice. 6 for the first roll, not good enough, so let's try the next priest. He has a bit more success. There we go, 9. So the Blessing of Harvest comes into play, which means I only have to spend 2 of the conquered cards to play a reinforcement. So I discard 2, still got 1 there, and shuffle the deck, draw a card at random, and it's a wizard, which is useful since I've just lost a wizard, but he's kind of out of the way there, but still better to have one on the table. I'll need to get him moving at some point. And with that, the harvest comes off of play, and that is an end to my turn.